If we're going to put money or even just our time, which is really valuable, behind something, we want to make sure that the data is there to support it.
Hello, welcome to episode 135 of the Smart Agents Podcast. As always, my name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by Tyler Horsley of Nuclear Networking. Based in Denver, Colorado, Tyler shares his tips for better leveraging digital marketing to position yourself as the market expert and separate from the crowd. One of Tyler's favorite methods for that is to really hone in on a niche and become the authority on the topic. Now, before we get on to today's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, if you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or a tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to today's featured interview with Tyler Horsley. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you do as well. The way I like to start everything out is if you could just introduce yourself to us a little bit, who you are and what you do.
No worries. Yeah. So Tyler Horsley, one of the founders of Nuclear Networking. It's a performance marketing group. We basically position ourselves as a business growth agency. We're located in Denver. We serve international actually now. But I do happen to, of course, Nuclear Networking is private equity owned, currently owned by DRG Invest, who does a lot of property management, property ownership. They do brokerages, real estate, residential, multifamily, and construction as well. So very close to all these worlds.
Right. So perfect for our listening audiences. You have the real estate background there. Well.
Yeah, real estate background, but definitely a tech nerd. So hopefully I can bridge some worlds.
Right. So tell me a little bit about how you got into this before we really kind of jump into the meat of the conversation.
Sure. I made a strange jump. I actually started in federal law enforcement. So I worked in for two different agencies. One was actually both were 3-letter, but I guess any of them are 3-letter agencies. Now that I think about that. I essentially ended that career in military contracting, working, call it the guise of intelligence. We'll just leave it at that. But that actually naturally kind of transitioned, believe it or not, into what I'm doing now, just deconstructing competitors, strategies, pulling accessible data, leveraging actionable data to kind of create, positive outcomes online. And what I loved about the business growth agency world is when we win and when we apply that data and that knowledge correctly, you build revenue, right? And for your partners, for yourself, of course, as well. And so that's, 30,000 foot view of how I got into this space.
Right. So, the great thing about real estate is, and for this conversation is, every agent out there, whether they're working for a brokerage or they're independent, everybody's a small business, regardless of what you're attached to. And a lot of it has to, a lot of your early success depends on how you're branding yourself and treating it's not a job anymore. It's a full-on business.
Yeah, it is, and it can be difficult. We have I've got a lot of buddies, that work at the brokerage, and, whether it's individual contractor status or it is very much each individual is as their own business owner. And then when you start getting into, some of the details of how do I do A, B, and C, typically brokerages will give you your tool set, but you can't expect them, everyone to be an expert just immediately in marketing. And so there's certainly some opportunities and challenges there.
Right. So I definitely want to start out by, talking about ways that people can, scale up their businesses outside of those, calling your friends and family to start giving you businesses.
Yeah. So I'll probably stick to the, I call it performance or digital marketing aspects. And some of it is, let's just call it out early. Some of these acronyms are really overused. People have heard of them before: SEO, SEM. Some individuals too, and I've met them personally, been in this for a long time. It's like, I've tried this and it didn't work. Or, I do a lot of blogging and it's just not sticking, right? And so I'll just probably speak from experience, share, some of those different channels and more that we leverage that tend to work really well. From anything from actual, buying and selling of properties or new client acquisition and trying to accelerate trust building, right? Like you said, if it's not your family or your friends, it's like, well, why would they choose me? And I know brokerages are helpful and they typically provide tool sets, but some of those tool sets, an average buyer may not fully understand the value of those, right? And so if it's Caldwell or if it's any of these other brokerages, big or small, really, it's like, hey, well, we have marketing, and if you sell through us, not only can we push you out on the MLS, but we can also do A, B, and C, and we've got this great Facebook following. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, and those things certainly, they certainly help. But one of the things that we do really well is try to get really creative with specific avatars or targets that we're working with. And so what that looks like is, so I'm in Denver again, and our market is absolutely nuts, and then with rates where they're at now, it's very strange because I think in the rest of the US, some of those acquisitions have slowed down because of the rate increases, but they have these really hot spots in the United States. It's almost like rates could be 14%. I still think that these homes would sell, in a day. So what we typically do is, maybe one example of those avatars might be people moving from X state to Colorado. And what that looks like is maybe it's, and I'm making this up on the spot, South Dakota or Utah or LA. We have a lot of people from California moving here. So it's like, what we would actually do is there's a marketing mechanism called geofencing and geo-targeting. And so geo-targeting and geofencing are a little bit different. Geo-targeting is we essentially create a landing page specific to people who live in an area and like, hey, are you interested in moving to Denver? Right? Because we can see what people search and those types of things online, and essentially drive them through some sort of an offer channel or evaluation. And what that looks like is, instead of, hey, I'm a realtor, work with me, I'll help you find a home. Like, that's really generic. And the likelihood is they probably already know somebody who could. And so really thinking deeply about, if I was in front of 30 other realtors in front of potential prospects, what could I say in under 10 seconds to capture their attention and do it in a meaningful way? If it's, I'll answer my phone and I'll do my job well, and I'm poking fun at ourselves, nobody, no listeners by any means, but it's like, well, that's not a core differentiator. We need to really think outside the box. The cutting board you give them at the end of the acquisition isn't going to be why they choose you, right? So it's like, if you sub out, I've seen a couple of realtors on our team cater to Airbnb or STR, short-term rental investors. It's like, hey, I know all the legislation. I know Denver law needs to be your primary, but I also know these pockets outside of Denver where you can do these acquisitions where these home values are enormous, but you're still going to get that Denver Airbnb traffic. And so having a specific knowledge set, something like that in that specific niche has helped a lot. Or offering, if those individuals are coming here, like free showings, this, that, and the other, and I know we want to get them to paper us up so they know we're exclusive, and that's true. But man, extending an olive branch goes a long way to newcomers from out of town, and buying them dinner or setting up some sort of an environment, taking them out for happy hour, being knowledgeable about the place you live. Those are things that we really try to do to differentiate ourselves. And that would be a start. And I could certainly dive deeper, but this would be kind of a 30,000 foot view and good things to think about. How are you different than every other realtor that they could choose from?
Right. Yeah. So talking about that client avatar, because I think that's a really interesting one, because it's, there's no such thing as a one size fits all in the real estate space. But how do you go about really kind of creating, those individual avatars for those different subsets that you might be bringing in, your pipelines are coming from?
Sure. So this is where these two worlds can kind of cross over, this MarTech space that I work in and the AI nerd side of me.
Right.
So there are platforms that exist out there. You can buy licenses. Some of them let you use them for free. Everybody is used to paying IDX, or maybe the brokerage covers these fees, et cetera. But on the marketing side, very rarely do brokers cover licensing fees for marketing tools. They just don't, because they're in real estate, right? And so if you look at like semrush.com or ahrefs, ahrefs.com, spyfu, spyfu.com, all these things, what we're really trying to get to is keyword research. And so this might be foreign to some listeners, like, whoa, I don't know what you just said, replay it, go to those websites, and I'm certainly not, a marketing expert. The really cool thing is you don't have to be. If you go to ahrefs.com, there's actually a tab. When you get there, they'll let you try some things for free. So there's that, but you can basically click Keyword Explorer. And when you type in Keyword Explorer, things that I look for specific is back to those avatars, those niches. And here's why that's absolutely necessary. And actually in almost every industry, this industry in some cases is pretty heavily diluted, and it's not maybe more diluted than it used to be, but with natural language processing and ChatGPT and just like this hockey stick of technology that we're all riding, this crazy roller coaster, right. Anyone and everyone can be found super easily online. And so now you hear tons of noise. And you'll see this too on like podcasts or YouTube personalities or influencers. They pick one specific niche and they just own it. And if you can, back to that STR space, and this isn't absolutely necessary, but a lot of people in Colorado come here to ski, so Breckenridge, Suffolk County, there's people making pretty substantial money doing that, and people looking to diversify into different markets, especially if you have more affluent customer bases. They don't mind spending $5 to $10 million for a home in Breck that they visit once a year, as long as they can rent it out. And so of all sizes, what we essentially do is use those tools like Ahrefs, and we start, looking at, sure, we can start at the basics: homes for sale Denver, homes for sale Colorado, homes for sale Lakewood, Aurora, all of the, like many other big cities, this thing is just engulfing every other city. And we can see those tools will actually show you how many thousands of people per month look for that online. And that's super important because if we're going to put money or even just our time, which is really valuable, behind something, we want to make sure that the data is there to support it. And so if you start looking at Breckenridge homes for sale, right? Maybe after this podcast goes out, their homes just go up the market and they can thank us here. Yeah. But it's like, look that up and you might find out very quickly, it's like 2,800 people a month are looking for that. Well, that's really interesting. What if we created a unique experience, one simple landing page? And if you guys don't have creatives, the listeners out there, it's like, well, how do I do a landing page? Like there are certainly agencies that do that. There are creative agencies, Upwork.com. There's different platforms you can find these resources. But this one landing page is just all about the beauty and the town and the history of Breckenridge and, demographic information of people coming from Italy and all over the world to ski this powder. Like, this is good snow. And that helping people fall in love with the location, maybe pulling some numbers from their DNA, and then helping tell that story of, if you do buy here, not only do you and your family get to, do A, B, and C, you also have access to all these amenities, and you can make $150K plus a year short-term renting your house if you're not there. Like, that is what people want. They want value. They want education. That'll build instant trust. You don't need to know them. They immediately are like, wow, this person knows what they're talking about. I saw this white paper on LinkedIn about buying in Breck. I need to talk to them. And so that's one of many examples. And hopefully that's not too generic, but becoming an industry thought leader in a specific niche, and preferably something you love as a realtor, that's a way to be noticed, because there's a lot of people searching for what you're selling.
Right. Absolutely. And I think, like you kind of tying that back into, all the noise that's out there now. Yeah. I mean, everybody's doing video, everybody, it all kind of looks similar. But then when you go and actually click on those websites, so many of them just take you to this generic website, might not even have a picture of the agent on them.
Right.
And it's like, where do I go from here? I was like, and I really like this idea of becoming, that expert in that specific targeted market that you are, that you're going after.
Yeah. One of the things, I guess, it is just worth mentioning, because it's a lot of, here's opportunity, but like actual practice, brokerages, obviously, if you're going to create your own creative, getting that approved, is it compliant, is it properly marked up, etc. But separate from that, what we've also done is created just educational frameworks. It's not a real estate site. It's just education about Breckenridge. Contact an agent. Well, now all of a sudden that goes back to your brokerage page. Everything's in compliance. But to your point, videos, everything kind of looks the same. I've seen, and I have friends in real estate as well. I've seen some, and it's like an Instagram, and it's just tons of photos of the homes they have for sale. And it's like, that's good. But if you really want people to fall in love with where you're at, why don't you show me like 80% of your Instagram should be you having a blast in Breckenridge, skiing, going to the best restaurants, being the industry thought leader. If you look at Airbnb, and if you've ever stayed at an Airbnb, what you're going to notice is the host has like this list of, here's the best places to go in the spot. And here's, Nancy's coffee. It's been there for 80 years. Here's the baked goods. Like that's the kind of stuff people will follow. And you can build a massive network that way. One last thought I would share on that is, I was listening to, I can't remember, I'd love to give him credit, how to make like your first million or some sort of a podcast like that. They basically deconstruct businesses. One of the things that they mentioned was like, there's this framework on Twitter called like any area of expertise plus the guy. So as an example, it's like the automotive guy, the watch guy, the this guy, the that guy. And basically these accounts just post about watches. Hey, here's the best watch. Here's the worst watch. Here's, I'm butchering this, but the idea is they basically gain tons of following, and then they eventually monetize it because people will go to that person. That's the industry expert. And you could certainly be the guy or the gal who does that in your specific niche or geography. So
right. Well, actually, what's funny about that is in the Denver area, I spoke to somebody, it was about a year ago now, and their whole brokerage, they are known for mid-century modern homes, and that is what they focus on, and they're killing it. And because even when you do go to their Instagram pages, it's all really cool looking architecture and homes, and like there's these really great stories they put together with the people that own the homes, and they're dominating that market there.
Yep. Niche, right? Just owning it. People, again, with the accessibility of the internet, I know tons of our collective customers, they're on Pinterest, they have boards, they're falling in love with mid-century modern farmhouse. They're Chip and Joanna Gaines fans, and they want that.
Right.
Like, you can own your niche, So, yeah.
And the guy I was talking to, he loves it too. Like he has fun every day going on because it's something he's really interested in too.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like the cart before the horse mentality, right? I know that there's probably a few brokers out there, any realtors listening in, like, man, I got to ramp this thing up quick. Like just started, I only sold one house, this year, like I need to go. And it, I would say to that, certainly look at or stick to a niche. You could use some of those tools we talked about earlier in the episode here, just to look at like mid-century modern homes for sale Denver. Like you can see how many people look for these, and just using your creativity, you're like, wow, like this one has more searches per month than any other thing. Do I enjoy that? Like you said, do I enjoy mountain homes? Do I want to live downtown? Do I want to, and content generation is probably the most time consuming to kind of catch up and to appear as a thought leader. But, what we heavily rely on and or like as the future kind of continues pushing us forward, using natural language processing or ChatGPT for inspiration. It's like, I've done this. So, we own a capital group as well. We do races, we go, acquire apartments and more. And I'm building a deck to do a race in Mexico, actually. And so it basically just asked, ChatGPT, I'm like, tell me why, someone should visit Tulum. And it's just 20 bullet points of like really colorful language around culture and food and music, and you know what I mean? And so It's like, if you do need those types of ideas, how would I come up with this? Spend a day, on that platform. You probably pump out a year's worth of content and then start putting out all over your boards.
Right. Yeah. No, it's great. We tested it out too. It was just like pumping in a few little sentences. It gave us like, 30 different YouTube videos we could,
Yep.
crank out, and it was awesome. Yeah. I definitely, if you haven't checked that out, I definitely would. Um, Moving toward, one of the things you talked about that you guys do is really kind of deconstructing
Right.
businesses and, seeing what has led to their success. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit over to these agents that are looking to build up their teams or their own brokerages,
Sure.
and some tips to kind of set them on the right path. Because I know it's kind of overwhelming for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I mean, just, yeah, competitive landscape, you name it. So I guess tips, and I won't harp on this positioning piece too much, but I really think it's like, especially if you're at the beginning of creating a brokerage, positioning yourself as the thought leader in a specific space. Like, we are the boutique brokerage for antique mansions downtown Denver, or Wash Park Homes, which is or Cherry Creek, or this, that, or the other, or Rhino, if you like more of like the urban areas with the art districts. So that I do think positioning is everything, and I know that's even just business owners in general that goes against their grain, because they're like I could sell just a regular home in a different neighborhood. I don't want to put myself into a box. It's like, yes, that makes sense, but now you're the same as 50,000 other people doing the same thing. Now you are just, you have it pierced through, right? So really thinking about positioning first. Secondly, if they're starting their own brokerage, this is cool because now you have complete freedom on what you want your website to look like. So as a marketing nerd, I am a huge advocate for proper branding. Really invest, like, and it doesn't mean necessarily that you need to spend an arm and leg or whatever, that phrasing is on a website, but really shocking viewers once they hit your page. So like, this is gorgeous. Like I love how they've styled this. Maybe even like this mid-century modern person that you talked to out of Denver, like even styling the site to kind of like have that back vibe. That is really cool too, just owning it and living a theme, right? So people can feel you get me. You're not just saying you do this, like your whole life is styled to meet what you say you are. What I would look at from a recruiting side, just building a brokerage. So we talked about website, positioning, styling, etc. How to incentivize brokers to work at your brokerage, or realtors to work at your brokerage, because some of this space can be high turnover, right? And now you're competing with, and you have, major Keller Williams, Remax, Caldwell, and they're just throwing money at these tool sets, and they also market their own tool sets to their brokers, like, come hang here, have a beer, we're better. So I think one of the benefits that we have in this time is, and I don't think I'll make anyone upset out there, but it's like, those bigger companies move slower. They can't necessarily cater to or have a specific niche offering for their individual client base, which honestly is realtors. They can't necessarily. Whereas the boutique brokerages, you can maybe negotiate. Maybe you sweeten the deal and you're paying out higher commissions. Maybe you have full support. Maybe you have if you hunt and kill on your own, you get X, but if we give it to you, you get Y. One of the biggest things where we've seen more longevity and retention is, hey, we get digital marketing. Right. Because who is your realtor group that's going to come work for you? And, there's certain mindsets of individuals who just want the bigger company stability. But there's other mindsets where it's like, I want a company that's progressive, that knows what they're doing on tech, because I've worked for this agency. They gave me a little web page and I wasn't allowed to do anything other than hand a card out. And it's like, that didn't work, right? So I'm just for everyone listening, like, I'm biased. I love digital marketing. But it's like, look at your future home buyer base. Millennials, sure. Gen Z, absolutely. Everyone is glued to their phone. They're on social, they're on TikTok, they're this, they're that. And getting on that train and being visible there and making it fun is the way to target the entire future of the home buying in the States. So
Yeah, absolutely. And, touching on that is, with your websites, make sure it's like mobile compatible first. Like that's
Yes.
the,
Oh my
you
gosh.
know,
Yes.
we were,
Yeah.
we were looking at some of our stuff not too long ago. It was like 93% of our traffic came through mobile. And it's like,
Yeah.
if that wasn't a glaring red flag that everything should be built for the phone first.
Yep. That's exactly right. Yeah. People dream. I mean, very rarely, statistically, when people are buying homes, like they need to fall in love. So there's this understanding the emotion of like, they're going to be shopping around. They're on Zillow every day. They're swiping, swiping, swiping. And if you're in a hotter town, it's like by the time you see it on Zillow, it's gone. So, so it's like great. But they're going to be saving favorites and looking at these, trying to figure out what they like, what they don't like, building Pinterest boards and more. And so to your point, if you could not only be present on those social platforms, but you can also make it look really vibrant to the extent that they follow you, like that's really the make it or break it. It's giving of your time, but it's having fun and being a real personable human being. And whether we like it or not, that is how people are going to interact more in the very near future. And it's already happening. Just that's the next generation behind us.
Right. What's interesting, I think, you talked about this like hockey stick of technology and being, really heavily involved in the digital marketing space. And I think, a lot of times when people hear technology, they feel like it's taking the personalization away from things, but it's doing the exact opposite. You're really able to create more meaningful connections with people now using all of this tech that's out there.
Right. You can. Yeah. And I mean, if we were to reposition, realtors, brokers, owners of brokerages, any other way, if we were talking about a different industry entirely, this would click. It's like, hey, if you're an influencer or if you work at Disney, as an example, they call all of their employees actors. They're not, they're not cleaners. They're not this, they're not that. They're actors. And if you can kind of reposition your mindset as like, hey, I'm going to live on this platform here. And maybe that's uncomfortable for some. And we have platforms that kind of help us produce content. You can look at what other people are doing as well. But to your point, like you can still make that connection. Maybe it's Instagram and you have everybody follow you and DM you if they have questions. And all of a sudden, like you have this live, they could talk to you. And some of those people, especially if you're positioned as an influencer, you're doing fun videos, humans create in their mind like this barrier of they elevate. Right. Whoa, this person has all these followers. Like I could never talk to them. And then all of a sudden they respond to you in the direct messages. And, that certainly helps. But yeah, it certainly doesn't replace the relationship aspect. But given the time that we are in, the likelihood of you randomly meeting somebody over a group lunch, very slim. Right. And so it's like
right.
Getting on local social platforms for targeting and having them like your persona and what you do, they'll actually find you, so if you're quality content.
Right. Before we wrap up, I do want to ask, because you are so, like connected to this world, what, kind of future things that agents should be looking out towards that, if maybe, is one of the things is unfortunately is by the time you hear it, and you're hearing about it and you're starting to see all the videos pop up about it, you might have already missed the boat.
That's right.
What are some of the things, that agents should be looking for, coming up in the future?
I think things to really think about, and I'm with you. It's that adage, like if everything's on sale, nothing's on sale. So it's if everyone's doing the same thing, it's really hard to still kind of differentiate yourself. So outside of positioning and finding your niche, depending on where you're at as a listener, if you are a brand new realtor, if you're trying to start your own brokerage, like those are very two different places. Mm-hmm. And so things that I've seen that have helped fairly substantially just in my personal life and some of the businesses that I've built and sold are some of those specific niche local communities. Maybe that's just a word salad, but depending on what level your brokerage is at financially, communities like EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, YPO, Vistage, those things are really helpful. And what those communities are is basically you can surround yourself with other business owners, likely not in real estate, by the way. And the whole point of saying that, and even if it's only a local chamber or something right out of the gate, getting in front of people who think differently than you do is actually really important. Because if everyone's going to the same seminars and everyone's listening to the same thing over and over and over, everyone's doing the same thing. And so it's like, if you can talk to your future desired customer base, what would you guys be into? Like, what is no one else doing in the space that I could do that's collective or that's fun, or throw a happy hour or go host a golf tournament, or maybe try to be the face of some philanthropic moves and help in this area, and then raise money and then self-sponsor. I mean, there's a lot of creative things, but I think getting feedback from people who are not your family and friends is the best feedback that you could get. And then finding ways to incentivize them giving feedback will at least give you a start. So, I mean, it's probably one of the best things that I've put into practice, is following others and listening to others' perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. I really do appreciate you taking the time to speak with me today. And I really, the whole positioning as that authority in that really targeted area, I think is super important.
Yeah. Yep. It's proven. I mean, it is work just to give people hope out there.
I really want to thank Tyler for joining us today, and think it's really important for agents of any level to reassess your client avatar periodically to make sure you're positioning yourself in a way that will help you stand out from the crowd. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.